There's something called the individualistic postulate, which is going to sound stupidly obvious to everybody in this room. However, before most of us were born in 1962, this was considered groundbreaking and actually highly, highly controversial. Number one, you can look at collective action as a sum of individual actions. I told you it would seem obvious. Number two, only individuals choose and only individuals can create a collective. Again, obvious to us, groundbreaking in 1962. And within the collective, even after you create the body politic, individuals are still choosing how to vote and how to act based on their own unique interests. So please don't say to me, society seeks what is best for the common good. It bloody well doesn't. And things like vote buying and vote trading and log rolling and side agreements are normal. Why do we have companies? Why don't we all just have individual, we'll have our own LLC, we'll have contracts with each other. Why actually form companies? And the answer is friction. There's a lot of friction in contracting, but if we are all owned by a single entity and we all have jobs there, it's much smoother and quicker to do certain kinds of things. Well, blockchain gives us a middle ground where you can be more tied in than you would with just mere contracting, but still more distant than you would be in the same company. What decision rules do we use? And so on. So what are the incentives during this pre-constitution phase? Well, we can't know which side of the argument we're going to be on in advance. And if I don't know if I'm going to be in the minority or not, I have an incentive to keep the minority position fairly safe. I don't want to have a rule where minorities get screwed. So I have an incentive to seek a certain kind of basic fairness. Unless I know in advance I'm going to be part of a special subgroup. I'm going to be a landlord. That I'll push things a certain way. Oh, I'll be a whale. I want token voting. Or I'm going to be a BP. I want something specific. Or I'm going to be a non-whale. I want account voting. Or I'm going to be a dApp developer. I want someone to give me free user accounts. So you can see in advance, you may know it's not going to be random how the fights are going to break out. So pre-constitutionally, the battle lines may already pre-exist. Okay, now it's constitution decision time. We've got all the major players. We think about them. What are their needs? How do we create a level playing field? How do you create, amongst these different groups that may have things in common, collect them into houses or chambers, and then require that supermajorities include a collective that says, it's not just big token holders that have to agree, also the dApps have to agree, or maybe also the small holders all have to agree. Now, we're not there at EOS, but in future blockchains, or maybe some future for EOS, we could be. This is one approach that can be used to balance out the interests that otherwise can become very unbalanced and harm the whole. Then we get into legislative decisions. You've got these houses that are autonomous internally. We've got operating rules that are grouped by, are they majority only, are they supermajority, what are the decisions that are made? And so you might say a majority of each house is all that's required for a minor system change, but say 2/3 of all the members of each house have to agree, and all the houses have to agree for a major system change. Finally, you get into operations. If there are problems, you bring up a dispute. Dispute resolution is pre-built, hopefully into every contract. And then you have the standard dispute resolution staircase. You confer, the two of us, we can't agree, we go to mediation. That doesn't work, we go into arbitration. That way you don't overload arbitration with every little dispute. Some of you are familiar with this book called Governing the Commons. Because we have a collective, we have certain things that must be managed in common. They are not private property. Your tokens are private property. The bandwidth of the network as a whole is public property, but it's governed by staking. But what are the other things? Well, let's see, the worker proposal system with several $1 million worth of tokens in it. It's a common pool resource. Any kind of decision we make to change the rules of the system, we're changing the common pool resource that is the code base. So we have a variety of things that are common pool resources that we have to manage. And Elinor Ostrom won the Nobel Prize, co-won it, for her work on common pool resource management. And she found 8 things that successful human communities have anytime they successfully manage a common pool resource. And if you take away 2 or 3 of these, they stop being able to manage them successfully. The 8 things are clear group boundaries, who's in, who's out. Number 2, a match of the rules to the local conditions. You don't have the same rules on the east side as on the west side, on the wet side of the hill as on the dry side of the hill. Ensure that people affected by the decisions can influence the decisions, not just for legitimacy's sake, but for information. I promise you, if there's something about a job that doesn't work and you're hands-on doing the job, you are the first person to know there's something going on. To make sure the rule-making rights of the community are respected by outsiders so they don't come in with their top-down rules and screw up the stuff that's working for us. Community members can monitor each other's behavior. On a blockchain, that's easy. But there be graduated sanctions for violations. You don't have to chop off people's hands. You can have actually very small sanctions, Ostrom found, are highly effective in communities. Low cost means for dispute resolution, and the ability to have nested tiers where small groups manage themselves inside a larger context. I'll give you an example in a second. So how are we doing these things on the EOS mainnet, and how can they be done in other EOS-based blockchains that are public? Token holders who sign the Constitution, they're in, others are out. That's a clear boundary. A match of local rules to local conditions. When you have an app like Pixel, the Pixel game, it's got its own rule set inside of itself. It's allowed to do that. Every DApp is allowed to create its own local rules. We take it for granted, but it's actually a big deal. People can participate in discussion of modifying the rules. Right now, the EOS Alliance, some of you know about the EOS Alliance? Yeah? The EOS Alliance is hosting a worldwide 4-language dialogue on whether and how to amend the EOS mainnet Constitution. And after those conversations are done, the referendum code is being created that will allow us to vote collectively on which changes to make. And this is a very underappreciated thing here.